Well, earlier this month, I was in Atlanta, and I sat down with Mayor Kasim Reed to discuss the widespread effort to restrict our right to vote. I did a session at Congressional Black Caucus with Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and we had folks on the panel from Georgia who said you have nearly 1 million black folks in the state unregistered. Yeah. And so what needs to be done to get them involved, to get them active, and to get them to understand that there is power in your numbers if you actually use it and actually vote?
Roland, I think what needs to be done is to get on with it and stop talking about it. The number of unregistered voters that you just referenced has been known for some time. The number is easily that, or comfortably that, between black people and Latino people and other people. Let's get on with it. If I were in a position to give the president advice today, I would advise him to invest right now in the most significant voter registration effort in the history of the state of Georgia. If you look at the 2010 elections, let's not look at the the 08 elections where the president had a great turnout without setting foot in the state of Georgia in the last 5 months of the campaign. So he got 46% and never came here in the last 5 months. I happen to believe that if you look at the 2010 numbers, which was the high mark for Republicans in the state, they won every single constitutional seat in the state of Georgia. The margin was 200,000 votes, though. So I think that suggests that if you just get on with it and stop having these intellectual conversations, put boots on the ground.
That means put money in, invest in, send the folks out and make it happen.
Yeah, really, and either play it or play it all. I mean, that's really where I am. I think that this state is clearly winnable for our president, but I don't think that you can do it in a piecemeal, quiet approach fashion. You know, somewhere in a room somewhere, they've got to decide that either they're going to compete or they're not compete. But if they come into Georgia trying to play small or incremental, I don't think they're going to have a good outcome.
We have seen massive voter suppression all across this country, especially in southern states. Republicans have taken over state legislatures and they have been changing the rules. One of my criticisms has been, look, show me where they are trying to expand the vote versus contract the vote. In Georgia, they passed the voter ID law. And so we've seen the same thing take place in Ohio. We've seen it take place in other states where they're trying to get this passed. What signal does that send? But also, what do you say to those folks? Same thing, having these intellectual conversations. What would you tell them that when it comes to mobilizing and organizing? Because the law is on the book.
Yeah.
It's the law. It's been certified by the Department of Justice under President Bush here in Georgia.
Yes. Well, I would point to this. In 08, with the law on the book, which I've worked against, voted against when I was a member of the Senate, the president got 46% of all votes cast in the state of Georgia. So one, we need to educate on the legislation because we do not have the political ability to change it. So as a part of this registration effort that I talked about, we need to add an education component that addresses the voter ID concern.
So if you don't have one, make it happen when you get one.
The other part is the early voting standards that have been put in place can actually work to the benefit of those who've been disadvantaged. In Georgia, you have no reason to provide for getting an absentee ballot. If you want an absentee ballot in Georgia, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be at work. You can just raise your hand and get an absentee ballot.
So you're saying, as opposed to waiting to go to the polls, just request an absentee ballot, don't need to show a voter ID, and you vote.
And you also have early voting. So rather than complaining, I think that the changes that were made that were not necessarily meant to help openness inclusion, if you do the work, can end up having the alternate impact by making it easily accessible for newly registered voters to have access to ballots. And we also have early voting in Georgia as well. So there really is no excuse for us to not play with a president that's going to raise unprecedented financial resources for a presidential race.